My friends, history has taught us that the strength of a nation is not only measured by the might of its weapons, but by the spirit of its people. Yet, when a nation chooses both excellence in defense and dignity in purpose, the world watches with quiet unease. Today, we speak of such a symbol. The Arjun main battle tank of India. It is not just steel and firepower. It is a declaration that a sovereign nation, built on peace, unity, and unshakable will never be underestimated again. They may not admit their fears aloud, but behind the closed doors of global strategy, India's Arjun rumbles through the silence, commanding respect, demanding recognition. For a new India has risen not in aggression, but in readiness, not in conquest, but in confidence, and that is what they fear the most. The Arjun main battle tank stands today as a symbol of India's determination to rise through its own capabilities, a powerful testament to its indigenous military strength. Born not from dependence but from necessity and vision, the Arjun represents decades of perseverance, research, and innovation by Indian scientists, engineers, and defense personnel. While many doubted India's ability to produce a combat vehicle of this caliber, the tank's development silenced critics and shifted narratives. It is a bold response to a world that long believed that such complex defense systems could only come from a few established powers. India, through the Arjun, declared that it will not remain a consumer of global defense technology, but a creator shaping its own path, built on the resilience and genius of its people. The Arjun is not merely a weapon of war, it is a strategic statement. With features such as advanced composite armor, a powerful 120 mm rifled gun, and state-of-the-art fire control systems, it proves that India's defense industry is not only capable of catching up, but leading in some domains. Its battlefield performance and growing recognition have quietly unsettled observers who once dismissed it. This is not just about hard, where it's about a nation's capability to transform itself into a producer of cutting-edge technology. It is about self-reliance. It is about control over one's sovereignty. Arjun embodies all of these principles, sending a quiet but undeniable signal that India's defense future is now firmly in its own hands. Such a symbol commands more than technical respect. It invites strategic recalculations. A self-sufficient India in defense production means reduced reliance on foreign imports, fewer external pressures, and more freedom in its international policies. And for many, that freedom, that bold autonomy, is the real cause for discomfort. The fear does not lie in the Arjun's armor alone, but in what it represents. The awakening of a nation determined to shape its own destiny, unshackled from dependency, and ready to stand as a true equal among powers of the world. The Arjun main battle tank showcases a level of technological sophistication that rivals even some of the most advanced armored platforms in the world. Designed and developed by India's Defense Research and Development Organization DRDO, the Arjun incorporates systems that match or surpass foreign competitors in several critical aspects. From its firepower to its defensive capabilities and battlefield versatility, Arjun is a blend of modern engineering and tactical innovation. Its main armament, a 120 mm rifled gun, delivers precision and punch, while its fire control system ensures accuracy even under high-speed movement or hostile environments. This kind of capability places the Arjun in a class of tanks designed not just for deterrence, but for decisive action when needed. Complementing its offensive prowess is a suite of cutting-edge defensive technologies. The Kanchan composite armor provides superior protection against kinetic and chemical energy attacks, a feature that has earned the respect of military analysts worldwide. The inclusion of thermal imaging sites, laser rangefinders, and battlefield management systems allows Arjun crews to engage multiple targets with deadly efficiency, even in low visibility or high threat situations. These are not just technical enhancements, they are battle multipliers that elevate the Arjun from a traditional tank to a highly networked battlefield asset. When compared with other global MBT, Arjun often exceeds expectations, particularly in mobility, accuracy, and crew survivability. Yet the world is hesitant to openly acknowledge these advancements. There is an unspoken discomfort in accepting that a developing nation has managed to close the technological gap in such a high-stakes arena. The Arjun is not the product of outsourcing or imitation. It is a homegrown marvel built to suit Indian terrain, climate, and combat needs. Its unique blend of power and adaptability defies the common assumption that indigenous platforms from the global south must always lag behind. This challenges established hierarchies in global defense manufacturing, forcing traditional powers to reassess both their strategic assumptions and market dominance. For nations and defense contractors who have long viewed India as a buyer rather than a builder, the Arjun disrupts comfortable patterns. The very existence of such a tank born from Indian mines, tested in Indian deserts, and refined through Indian hands represents a shift in global defense dynamics. It also introduces a competitive edge in export markets, where price-effective, high-quality alternatives are increasingly sought after. The Arjun's technological rise is not only a matter of national pride for India, but a quietly growing concern for those unprepared to compete with a nation that is no longer dependent, but determined. There is a curious quietness that surrounds the global reaction to India's Arj, and main battle tank, a silence that is not born out of indifference, but rather from strategic calculation. Nations that typically comment freely on the military advancements of emerging powers are noticeably reserved when it comes to acknowledging the true capabilities of the Arjun. This is not due to a lack of information or awareness. Instead, it is a conscious decision to downplay a reality that could shift regional and global perceptions. The Arjun is more than just a tank. It represents the steady rise of a self-assured India in the defense landscape, and this emergence challenges long-standing power equations. Publicly admitting the strength of this platform would mean conceding that India is no longer a passive participant in global defense strategy, but an assertive and independent force. Behind closed doors, however, the narrative is starkly different. Military analysts, strategic think tanks, and defense planners in rival nations and global powers alike monitor the Arjun with keen interest. They recognize its growing operational readiness, its evolving design, and the implications of a successful indigenous platform in one of the world's most strategically important regions. Their silence is a tool, a way to manage the narrative, to avoid encouraging India's defense self-sufficiency, or sparking interest in the Arjun among other nations that might consider military partnerships with India. To admit fear openly is to validate India's achievements. Instead, they choose denial cloaked in diplomatic restraint. This strategic silence serves multiple interests. For rival powers, acknowledging Arjun's success could mean strengthening India's position in regional power projection. It could also mean losing influence in arms sales, especially if India starts to aggressively promote indigenous platforms for export. For traditional suppliers of defense equipment, India's self-reliance signals a shrinking market, and thus it becomes convenient to ignore the elephant in the room. By refusing to recognize the Arjun's capabilities, they attempt to preserve their own relevance. But no amount of silence can undo the visible progress India has made in asserting its technological sovereignty through platforms like the Arjun. What is perhaps most telling is how the silence contrasts with the treatment of similar advancements in other regions. When other countries unveil military technologies, they are often celebrated or criticized loudly, both actions that imply recognition. In the case of Arjun, the lack of commentary is the commentary itself. It reflects the anxiety of an emerging power that is no longer merely reactive, but increasingly proactive. It reflects the quiet recalibration happening in the minds of those who once dismissed India's defense potential. And it reflects the uncomfortable truth that power, when it grows silently and steadily, is often the most disruptive kind. The development and deployment of the Arjun main battle tank have subtly but significantly contributed to a shifting balance of power in South Asia. Traditionally, the region has been viewed through the lens of asymmetrical military strength, particularly in the context of India's complex relationship with neighboring countries like Pakistan and China. For decades, India's armored strength was seen as heavily reliant on imported platforms, which introduced vulnerabilities not only in combat logistics but also in strategic autonomy. The Arjun has disrupted that narrative. Its presence on the battlefield represents not just the deployment of a tank, but the arrival of a new era in which India's deterrence capabilities are being reshaped by homegrown innovations, tailored for the terrain, threats, and geopolitical realities of the region. The Arjun's technological advancements directly contribute to this strategic shift. Its firepower, survivability, and adaptability offer a credible counter to modern armored threats in neighboring arsenals. It is built to operate in diverse terrains from the Thar Desert to the plains of Punjab, giving India flexibility and readiness along multiple fronts. This adaptability enhances not only operational performance but also the psychological weight of its presence. Military planners across the border must now factor in an indigenous system they cannot easily predict or undermine through foreign influence. The Arjun's deployment thus strengthens India's position in both conventional deterrence and strategic confidence. This recalibration is not lost on observers within the region. While public acknowledgement may be minimal, internal assessments in neighboring countries increasingly recognize the challenge posed by the Arjun. For decades, strategic calculations in South Asia relied on the assumption that India would remain dependent on foreign military systems with limited innovation of its own. The rise of Arjun shatters that assumption. It signals that India is no longer just a large force, it is a technologically evolving force. This shift demands that neighboring states not only invest more in their own defense upgrades, but also reconsider the military gap they once believed gave them leverage in specific terrains or battle scenarios. The Arjun's existence also offers India a firmer posture in regional diplomacy. When a nation demonstrates it can defend itself with systems it has designed and built, it commands more respect not just in terms of military might, but in the broader geopolitical arena. This affects negotiations, alliances, and defense dialogues. India's growing indigenous capabilities, with the Arjun as a symbol, offer it leverage that is not easy to quantify but deeply felt in the background of every regional decision. The tank is not just a platform of steel and firepower. It is a signal to both allies and adversaries that India's defense architecture is no longer a patchwork of foreign dependencies, but a rising model of national confidence and strategic clarity. The Arjun main battle tank stands as a powerful message of India's long-term vision for self-reliance in defense. In a world where many developing nations continue to depend heavily on foreign military imports, Arjun symbolizes a break from that dependency. It is not merely a combat machine. It is a declaration that India intends to shape its own destiny on the battlefield and beyond. Developed through decades of rigorous testing, redesign, and refinement, the Arjun's journey reflects India's broader ambition under initiatives like Atmanirbharbharat, a national policy centered on building indigenous strength across all sectors, especially in defense. In many ways, the Arjun is both a technological achievement and a national statement that India is prepared to take control of its own security architecture without waiting for validation or permission from outside powers. Every component of the Arjun tank speaks to this philosophy. Its armor, engine, fire control systems, targeting capabilities, and electronic support equipment are largely developed and produced within India. This not only reduces dependency on unpredictable international supply chains, but also allows for greater adaptability, customization, and maintenance on Indian terms. The ability to produce and upgrade systems domestically ensures that India can keep pace with evolving threats without being hindered by geopolitical tensions, export restrictions, or delays from external manufacturers. That kind of autonomy carries immense strategic value. It is an assurance that in times of conflict, India will not be paralyzed by lack of access or spare parts, a vulnerability that many dependent nations suffer from. The Arjun also sends a broader message to the Indian people that the country's security is being built by its own hands. This has deep psychological and nationalistic resonance. It fosters a sense of pride and confidence not just among soldiers who operate the tank, but among citizens who witness their nation stepping into a position of strength. The development of such an advanced indigenous platform helps inspire innovation, skill development, and self-belief across other sectors, from aerospace to cybersecurity. It proves that India's young scientific and engineering minds are not just capable of keeping up with the world, but of setting benchmarks that others will study and follow. On the international stage, the Arjun challenges outdated perceptions. It pushes back against the long-held stereotype that high-end defense manufacturing is the domain of a few Western or Eastern powers by proving that it can develop world-class military hardware at home. India repositions itself as a peer, not a client in global defense affairs. This shift not only enhances India's credibility among its allies, but also makes other nations take notice, sometimes uncomfortably. For them, the message is clear. India is no longer simply playing on the global field, it is building its own game. The Arjun, therefore, is not just a tank. It is a statement of independence, resilience, and future-focused vision.